But still, I think Amex is provided. Amex is actually really good firm on that aspect because I don't know, we already covered this feeling of losses and then feeling of success, like the rewards. Because whenever they ask for money, I think platinum yearly price is like 650, for example. It's so much, right? So expensive. But they at the same time they said that if you buy this card, we are going to give you 150 dining credits. So they are giving you something, valuable or like some additional things, and then another 150 from hotel stays, another 150 this and that. Try to reduce this loss feeling, right? And it works really well because there are some studies that they show that when banks started to ask this yearly fee in two installments, like split in two, the card cancellations and the complaints increases. But when they give them one time, but at the same time promise them something like we are going to give you dining credit or store credit, etc. So that's not the same feeling because they cannot calculate which one is better, and they think, okay, this is actually huge. But most of the people, they are not using this promise fight like a dining credit, and the company stays profitable. So yeah, so there are like different part of it. But yeah, one more thing, then we will have our first break. So for the loyalty as well, we have different type of loyalty, but getting people from like suspect, when you say suspect, of course, like suspected or suspect customers, potential customers, let's say, from suspect to prospect, and then shopper and customer, you see the loyalty ladder is also really lengthy, tall. Right? It's not easy to have loyal customers, even like advocates, so they are defending you in your absence. I said, no, you cannot. I mean, if you look at the Apple fans versus Samsung fans, they're always fighting each other online. I'm like, what's in it for you? So you pay a lot of money to buy the phone, and then have arguments. Other people saying that no, Samsung is really bad for it. Apple is better. Uh, it's surprising, but they're at the advocate level. Somehow they have this connection with the brand, and they defend the brand, right? So there are a lot of Apple fans. One of my friends actually wrote her dissertation on Apple versus Samsung wars. So it's like customer wars, by the way. So they're always having arguments or fighting each other online. But so after this point, we are gonna have a break. There are four different type of loyalty. When we talk about loyalty, and that if your relative attitude towards brand is high, so you really like the brand, and then your behavior, repeat patronage, repeat purchase behavior is high, is called true loyalty. That's the loyalty that we are talking about. So you like the brand, you favor the brand, and you repeat buy. You are a repeat buyer. So that's the true loyalty. But it doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes you buy a lot from certain brands. You always go, for example, my own example. I always go to the coffee shop that the downstairs of Bundle Row. I don't know if you've ever been to Bundle Row one. Not that I like the coffee there, but it is the most convenient for me. Okay, so my attitude is relatively low because I don't like the coffee there a lot, but that's my only option. Otherwise, I have to walk all the way to the nearest coffee shop, and this is called spurious loyalty. So it's not real loyalty actually. When I have an alternative, I will probably prefer another coffee shop, but it is the most convenient option for me. And there is another part of it. I really like the brand, but I cannot afford to buy that many times, right? So think of, I don't know, luxury brands like Ferrari or your other dream brand that you like to buy. So there are so many people dreaming Ferrari cars, so their relative attitude is high, but they cannot afford to buy. Okay, so that's called latent loyalty. So they are loyalty brand. That's why they can they get a Ferrari cap, a Ferrari shirt. That's what they afford, but they cannot buy the car itself. If we are talking about the products and consumers, and I'd like to share a recent, not recent actually, it's been almost 2 years now. Time flies quickly. One of my research that we did, how to influence people decisions, right? So how to change their behavior and create habitual behavior. And then it's published in Competitive Human Behavior. And what we looked at the smartwatch and other the applications. They are produced like or created for healthy habits like running, calorie counters, step counters, and everything. And we found that we can easily change people's behavior depending on their extrinsic intrinsic motivation. Because mostly that when we talk about reinforcement, we are talking about extrinsic motivation, right? So they choose you or they still using your app because they need to extrinsically motivate it. Either they need to see that other people are using it, or you need to give them something in return. But if you can change that extrinsic motivation to intrinsic motivation, it becomes a habit. Okay. And what we found in our research, we find that especially these four features, gaming, instructing, sharing, and tracking, works really well because there are so many like gaming articles proving that gamified elements increase engagement and involvement, and people prefer to spend more time. But what we also find that instructing, like telling people to stand up, right? So you sit 1 hour, now you need to stand up. That is also valuable for people because they cannot track that. They lost track of time, or for other things too. For example, in banking's app, I don't have those banking examples here, so that's why I'm trying to keep it short. For example, in like Monzo, for example, Monzo tells you to spend less, or that okay, you are spending so much compared to last month type of thing. It is kind of giving a nudge to do something for that. Okay, so this kind of instructing like to for you to do the right thing, and then sharing as well the social aspect of it. If we have other people that we can share the activity or share the experience, we tend to use that application more. But critical part that we found, for example, on Apple Watch, you can only share your activity, or you like to share your activity with your close family and friends. It is not passing the critical threshold because most of the people, they do not have enough friends to share their activities or nudge them when they run, etc. So they prefer a bigger or larger sharing platform like Strava type of thing. So they like to get connected with other people. Right. So Strava, in terms of creating healthy habits, is more successful than Nike app, for example. Right. So for runners and stuff. You were saying something?
Just because I was explaining before they started that article blew my mind because I was so surprised at how age and gender
And different things. Yeah.
had different impacts across the board. Now, while it blew my mind, I don't do this for a living, right? I think you're witchcraft. So, on your side, was it surprising to you too?
Yeah, 100%. What we do generally, we look at the literature first. We said, that, okay, can we find out something about it? Anyone said anything before that? And then we have that understanding. That's our hypothesis, right? So we like to test. We know that age should have an impact, but we don't know which direction it's going to go. Okay. So that's how we are actually learning new things. We know that in that relationship, elderly people maybe have different preferences or behaviors. And in terms of gender, male versus female, they have like different preferences or activities, but we don't know which feature is more important for them to create these healthy habits. Okay. And the last one, for example, tracking. Again, for example, we are using like Monzo. I'm using giving the Monzo example again. You go a holiday for another country, and when you come back, the first question in your mind is like, how much did I spend there, right? And the Monzo is like, welcome back to your country. Here's the money that you spend in another like in your holiday. So they are tracking your behavior, and you keep using their app for those features. Okay. So tracking, sharing, instructing, and gaming, and presenting those in a good manner or like appropriate way is creating habitual use eventually, or even like banking apps or other healthy apps as well. Like when I say banks are maybe like not part of healthy, but there is a term called this in terms of not healthy habits, but financial health. Okay, so it is also important for people to know their finance. So that's why it's part of our example set. And like Buddy mentioned, so we also observe some differences in terms of different age groups and different genders. For example, for sharing, so we saw that elderly people actually care more about sharing, right? So they like to share their activities or their behavior when they do something. Whereas, because it is actually against the knowledge of consumption, because younger generation they use this type of applications more often, right? So heavily, but old people, like older elderly people, they like to share their experience or their application activity with other people whenever they can. Okay, so that's just in a nutshell. You already have the article and the materials over there, so I don't want to go into details. But if you want to talk about it, I will be happy to talk.